So Alexandra is going to talk about parliamentary protocols. It's a Correlate project that is still underway, and I'm really glad that that you're going to talk about it. I think it's a very, very interesting thing. The project is analyzing the kind of discourse that has been going on in the German parliament since its beginning, and I'm going to hand over to you. Maybe just give a short introduction of who you are and what you're normally doing if you're not analyzing Bundestag protocols.
Yeah. So thank you for the introduction, Yannick, and thank you to Correlate for inviting me to speak here at CorrelCon. It's a pleasure. Hi everyone. My name is Alexandra Wörner. Oh, and now this pops up. Here we are. I'm going to show you today what we found out about the discourse on discrimination in politics by analyzing the speeches from the Bundestag, as Yannick already said. For this, we are, I will talk a bit about the background of the project, about myself too, that comes in a minute. Then we'll look shortly at the data that we used for this and the methods. In the end, I will show you the results as far as they are now. So about 90%, I would say. So yeah, let's do this. A few words about me. So the woman you're seeing on the bottom of your screen. As I said, Alexandra Wörner is my name. I'm a data scientist at scieneers / data engineer also. When I'm not doing analyses on political texts, I am working in several projects for different other companies, supporting them with their data projects. As the slide states, I'm a member in a Correlate project team, which is open discourse, together with, I think, 8 other people, analysts and data scientists. I'm a feminist, and I also am deeply interested in diversity and inclusion. Have been educating myself and others for about 2 years now. And I'm really interested in politics. That's why this project was really a pleasure for me to do. And it also explains the focus I put there in my analysis. So a bit about open discourse. What are they doing? So the plenary protocols of the Bundestag are open to the public. That's what the Constitution states. However, they are difficult to access because they are PDFs and some XMLs, as far as I know. And the focus of this project was to facilitate machine readability, so also processability of these plenary protocols. They did it by using some techniques from computer science and computer linguistics. And yes, as the Constitution states, these protocols, or what happens in the Bundestag, has to be public, and they want to facilitate this. So how does this data look like? We see here an extract with the speech itself here, the position of the speaker, and his surname in this case. A speech does also contain reactions from the plenary, so from other people of the parliament, members of the parliament, and some interjections. And Open Discourse took this data and put it into a database, which is much more accessible for machines. So you can just take your favorite tools in R or Python, or if you're familiar with SQL, and play around with the data. Some facts and numbers about this data. So until I think May of this year, there were aggregated over 4,000 protocols from over 4,000 speakers, which makes up about 900,000 speeches, 2.1 million interjections, and almost 200 million words. So this is all put into some tables enriched with metadata about the politicians, about the factions, and accessible for us. What can be put, or what is actually then put into the models we trained for these analyses? I have put together an example for you. So the example sentence is Google trains a multitude of models every day. If you do something that's called tokenization, so taking the individual elements of the sentence, like Google and trains and multitude, and then do a lemmatization. That means to get the base form, for example, train from trains, or the singular, in this case, model instead of models, and also do a lowercase, you get to this. Then you can do a part of speech tagging. So it assigns the structural role, the structural meaning of a word in the sentence to each individual word. And this is important to remove words which are not that important. So when we do this, which is called stop word removal, so something like a, which doesn't really have a meaning for a sentence, you arrive at this. So the end of a sentence like this here, at the top, we only get these 5 words. And this is done before training the models to all of the texts we're using, so that the machine, it has it a bit easier to work with the data. I want to show you 2 different techniques that we were using. The first one is word2vec, which maybe is familiar to some of you. It's a simple neural network, and it's there to make words that are the text, which is in general difficult to understand for machines, machine understandable. So it converts the words into vectors or encodings, which you can see here. So the words are put into the neural net, and in the end you get a vector. This is, as I said, important to give the machine the opportunity to understand what you're feeding it, and it's also makes it easier to compare words. So for example, you see the code for discrimination and for disadvantage is really similar, whereas between equality and discrimination you see quite a big dissimilarity. There are 2 different approaches to train a word2vec model. First one is a continuous bag of words, which is also the approach that we used in our models. It just says that the word of interest is dependent on the context it is in. So the words surrounding it have influence on this encoding. In the other approach, it is called skipgrams. It's the other way around. So the word of interest house here, it decides basically what words are surrounding it. The second approach is, or the second model that we use is a latent Dirichlet allocation, which is a form of topic modeling. The goal here is to find out what a document is talking about, so to speak. The model assumes that a document consists of topics, and the topics consists of words, which are just bags. And it assumes that a document is put together by taking words from these bags and just assigning them somehow in the document. So it also doesn't have a value, or puts emphasis on the order of words. It just sees them as a bag of words, like the word bag does. It assumes that these words are put together following a certain distribution, which is a Dirichlet distribution in this case, and it tries to learn, or the goal is to learn this this distribution and assigning then the probabilities of words to topics, which we can see here in this table. Those are just some example words, but seeing that house is in this left bag, which stands for topic 1, it makes sense that the probability here is high. So enough with the theory. I'm going to show you some results, which are here. So just one word before, or as I said before, this is not finished completely, so about 90%. So we are also really open to your feedback, to your ideas. And when I say we, I also mean Kyriakos Zarpakidis, who sparred with me, or who was my sparring partner during these analyses. While I was focusing on the word discrimination, or the topic discrimination, he took the approach by looking at the text with equality in mind. And so he put his idea into this too. So here we can see a word count. For this, we just counted how often a word like Diskriminierung, and so discrimination, and this means also discriminating, discriminated, discriminate. So all words in the which start with discriminate are put together. We selected the speeches, counted how often they the words occur here, and we see then how often they occur per 100,000 words in all speeches. So for the dark blue core, for example, which is the word Diskriminierung, we can see here that, for example, in 2013, there is a spike which correlates with the publication of a report of the Anti-Discrimination Office. We see here another spike in 2000. There were some directives, some rulings of the European Court of Justice with respect to anti-racism and the equality or the equal treatment of men and women in the workplace. And we can see, for example, that in the earlier decades, the word Benachteiligung, which is also discrimination in English, was a bit more important. For example, in 1962, when a law about social welfare was passed. So by doing these word counts and looking at them, we can actually yeah, really nicely see what happened in the political history in Germany. Then using the LDA I explained before, we can look at what was actually discussed. So, for example, the biggest topic is, yeah, not surprisingly, the equality between women and men. We can see it on the right. So it's women, woman, man, family, job, and so on. Another important topic is, I assume it was shortly after the war, some words like contract, state, Europe. So yeah, Germany had to sort itself out, find its position in the world. We have another important topic, which is economy, and for example, also the disability or people with disabilities. Then we can look at the factions. This is similar to the first graph, but only counting the word discrimination or discriminating, for example. And then we see here that SPD, FDP, CDU are quite similar. It changes throughout the legislative periods, but when the Greens come into the parliament, it changes significantly. They use the word quite often compared to the others, and the left, which enter sometime later, are also using it even more. Overall, we can see that the word or the topic, yeah, the topic's importance increases over time, which is maybe caused by the entry of the left and left here and the Greens. Yeah. Another look at it is this here. So this basically sums up the difference or the change in the share of the speeches which contain discrimination. So it's it takes the share of speech time or in total and compares it to the share in speech time for speeches that include discrimination and puts them in relation. So what it basically means is that the left and the Greens, as we saw before, are putting more emphasis on the topic discrimination as the other factions do. Which we can also see here more clearly over time. So this graph here is basically this, separated into the individual legislative periods. For example, the way around, the Greens are putting more emphasis on the topic, except the 15th legislative period. For CDU, CSU, it's it's switching. Sometimes it's they are talking more about it. Sometimes they are talking less about it. For SPD and the FDP, it's more or less the same. And we see other parties too. Interestingly, the AfD is talking proportionately more, slightly more about discrimination than other topics. So you already saw that the Greens are here below 0 in this legislative period, and the same goes, for example, for the SPD, and the question is, where does that come from? You already see I wrote the different governing parties here too, and that's important here. because if we put together the governing parties, then the picture becomes much more clearer. So the parties that are in the opposition are almost always talking more about discrimination, so using that word more often than the government does. The only exception is the fifth legislative period, which may be caused by a switch in the governing party. So 1 year after the elections, the FDP resigned, so to say, and the SPD governed together with CDU and CSU. What are they talking about? This is for the special fifth legislative period. We see for the government, it's something like monopoly, foreign, danger, and so on. On the right side for the opposition, there's really big the word value, but other than that, it's quite difficult to see a topic. Justice is here quite small, maybe that was a topic. In contrast, for the last legislative period, the 18th, there are, the topics are quite clear. So we have gender, homosexual, also heterosexual, marriage, lesbians, queer, and so on. On the right side as well, although the opposition is putting a bit more emphasis on transsexuality, for example, and homosexuality, which is maybe caused by the fact that the opposition, together with the SPD, signed or let's say signed the marriage of same-sex marriage. Using the LDA again, we can also aggregate, summarize the topics that have been discussed. For the government, it's equality of men and women in the first place, then a same-sex marriage in the second. Because of the SPD who supported this initiative, then it's Europe, the Brexit is included there, Turkey, Greece, probably because of the refugees, and the last one is the road toll and transport infrastructure, which was pushed heavily by the CSU. And on the other side, we can see persecuted people and secure home states, countries for the opposition, people with disabilities as well as refugees, then the equality of men and women and the same-sex marriage in the end of those top four, which can maybe be explained that sometimes it's not that important to talk a lot about stuff in order to do something about it. And with this, I want to thank you for your attention, and I hope it was understandable for you, and I look forward to your questions.
Yeah, I haven't seen any questions yet, but we're gonna wait some time. Otherwise, there's also the possibility to use the coffee break for discussions and questions about these topics. And I might say in the meantime that the results of the Correlate project with Open Discourse will be available on the Open Discourse homepage sometime soon. I hope like during November, maybe beginning of December, something like that. And there's the first question, if the speech data is publicly available.
Not yet. As far as I'm informed, it is the plan to make it accessible for everyone, but there's still some work to be done. But as far as I know, it's coming.
Yeah, I can second that. They want to do that. I think the database that they are having is still not on a publishable base. So in the project, there are also like kind of preliminary database being used, but
so we had some data quirks to fix, and I think there's still some open. And we have to wait until that is done.
There's actually someone from Open Discourse saying they are working on the data paper and improvements, and hope they will be
great.
within the next weeks. And there's also a very long question. Any theories about why the opposition talks about discrimination more than the government, or why both are talking about it more in the last few years? Is there any way you could start looking at what's driving these trends using data?
Really great question. And big question. So as I said, I think the increase over the last years is due to some new parties entering the parliament with progressive agendas. But I haven't looked too much into it. And there was one.
Why they have increased in the few years,
and why the opposition talks about it more. I think they can be a bit more can push more for such topics because they are not governing and making the rules, so it can be a bit more risky or more progressive in things. That's a theory I have. Is there any way to start looking at what's driving these trends using data? It's a lot of manual work, and that is what's still missing. So I hope I could answer your questions.
Okay, so if there aren't any questions left, I mean, you can be reached in any other channels as well, I guess. And
so I think in my profile there's my email, there's my Twitter, there's my LinkedIn. If you have any questions sometime later, then don't hesitate to ask. And there will also be an article about this work. So stay tuned. And also after that, I'm always open for questions.
So then it's only left for me to start the coffee break, which will take time until 4:30, and then you can join other sessions again. And there's a suggestion from Correlate advertising the open space tonight. And asking for suggestions, what can be done or talked about or games played for later. And there's a pad, like a document where you can put down your suggestions. So then, thank you very much, Alexandra, again for taking your time.
Thank you.
That being said, I'm closing the modeling session.